Hello Wine Vault customers, this is Trevor Garcia with Lohr Vineyards and Wines, and I'm checking in from our Paso employee garden at our Paso Wine Center. Thought we would start off here today and kind of check in from actually a gorgeous day following a little rainstorm we had here in Paso, and then we'll head up to the vineyards in a minute and kind of visit our red wine vineyards located right by the tasting room here in Paso Robles. But to start with, I wanted to get going with our first pairing, the October Night Chardonnay 2018, and that's grown up in Arroyo Seco. We grow all our white wines up north in Arroyo Seco, a little cooler climate area, and we keep our red wines a little warmer area down here in Paso Robles, and we'll get to those in a minute. But I thought I would start off with this October Night Chardonnay in our employee garden because we currently have some of our stone fruit trees blossoming here, and one of the big attributes of this wine is the clone 809 dominant clone in this, and that clone is known as the Muscat clone. It almost smells like a Viognier on the nose, and very floral, very aromatic. And I thought, short of driving up to Monterey, tasting the wine here kind of amongst the blossoms on a beautiful afternoon in Paso Robles would be the best way to go. This wine is our most limited production Chardonnay, and it's all from a single block in Arroyo Seco in Monterey. They're about 35-year-old vines, really good root development, and this particular vineyard is on an old dry riverbed, so a lot of big river stones in there. We call them greenfield potatoes, as it's kind of a name in the area for these large rocks. But the vines are developed, and from that you get a little bit of depth of flavor and a little minerality. And then this clone 809 that I talked about a second ago just adds a ton of floral characteristics and a ton of aromatics to this wine, and as a result you get a really bright wine that almost smells like it's going to be sweet, but it ends up being very dry. We completely dry it off. The sweet smelling nature is just that clone and not actually sugar in the wine. So super unique experience, and it's one we really reserve for our tasting room and some key customers. So we're really glad that you guys as customers of the Wine Vault can get a little taste of this to start off the night. I just wanted to take a second to come back to some of the tasting notes on this wine and some of the characteristics. This wine gets about 8 months in about 40% new French oak. So compared to our Arroyo Vista Chard, which you might be a little familiar with as it has some more exposure, that wine gets 15 months and 45% new. So kind of lighter handed on the oak here, and we really want that fruit to shine, and it makes it a phenomenal food pairing wine. So taking a look at the pairings tonight, it seems like you guys have two options to start out with, and that should be really fun with a versatile Chardonnay like this. So let's talk about some of the pairings that you guys have with this first wine, the October Night Chardonnay. The first one being that roasted cauliflower and toasted almond bisque with brown butter. I think that'll be perfect for this wine, especially considering how aromatic this clone is. It should lend itself really nicely. And then when you follow it up with the charred lemon and the seafood cake on your next dish, that should go really well too. I think this wine loves anything that's from the sea, and then it also does pretty well with the diversity of flavors due to that aromatic nose, that unique clone that we have in this Chardonnay. And then jumping back to that first tasting, or first pairing, excuse me, with the toasted almond note, I think when I think of nice, beautiful oak integration, I think of toasted almond, and I think that should be perfect with that light oak influence that we have on this Chardonnay. And hope you guys really enjoy it. And then next we're gonna head up to the vineyards and jump into some of our bigger red wines. I wanted to take a second here with you guys to kind of get down to the roots of things and get down into the vineyard. This little black, these little black dots on the ground that you see is actually part of our compost program, and it really ties into our sustainability program, which I'll check in with you guys about in a second at our pollinator garden. But we use all the leftover seeds and pumice and clippings from the vineyards when we do prune. We put those into a compost program and we return them to the vineyards. We're taking the grapes to make wine, so as much as we can add back into the soil and into the vineyards, the better we are and the better the vines are, and the better you guys as customers are when you get to taste the wine, because you know it's being made in a sustainable way, and that the wine's going to taste as good as possible from a growing perspective. I just wanted to take a second and check back in from our little pollinator habitat. As you can see, we've got the owl boxes above, and then the bees are very active and present in the bushes here, and it's a pretty lively zone, and it just kind of wakes up the vineyard and kind of keeps the good bugs doing what they do best. So next we'll get back down to the Tower Road Vineyard and check out some of those older Petit Syrah vines. Here we are in our Shotwell Vineyard, located in the El Pomar district of Paso Robles. This is a cooler climate sub-AVA within Paso Robles, and this sub-AVA gets influence from both the Templeton Gap as well as the cool winds coming down from Monterey. As I'm sure you can hear in the audio, the wind is picking up, and we're at about 10 or 15 miles an hour at this point in the afternoon. This is what provides, or what feeds into our diurnal shift here in Paso Robles, and what keeps the vine so happy. We get that 40-degree swing almost every day, and especially in the summer. And when it heats up out here, that swing really cools these vines down and lends itself to the acidity in the wines, as well as that beautiful fruit development. So thanks to the beauty of technology, I was able to get you guys out here to our Shotwell Vineyard, which is located in the El Pomar district of Paso Robles. This is a cooler climate AVA and a great home for the Cabernet that's making up the majority of our Pure Paso blend. This vineyard is about 8 years old and was really developed to grow our premium Cabernet bottlings, which is Hilltop, and then will also be Pure Paso. And I wanted to kind of introduce our next wine and check in from one of the vineyards on our home ranch up here. Our next wine is going to be the 2018 Pure Paso Proprietary Red Wine. This wine is dominantly Cabernet from our Shotwell Vineyard, Petit Syrah from our Tower Road Vineyard, which we'll get to in a second, and then there's a little bit of Cab Franc and Malbec blended in, as well as the splash of Merlot. We're up here at some of the Cab Franc vineyards. They're about 30 years old. We started in Arroyo Seco in the 70s. That's where the October Night came from, and where our white wines and our Pinot Noirs come from. And then in the early 80s, Jerry decided to move a little further south to build out our Bordeaux program, and he loved the wines coming out of Paso Robles. So we actually bought this vineyard that's behind me. This was our first purchase in Paso Robles, and has really been the backbone of the winery until kind of somewhat recent years, when we've really developed and purchased some really high-end vineyards, like our Shotwell Vineyard that goes into kind of the backbone of this Pure Paso red blend. We're having this wine with a Cajun chicken gumbo, and I think one thing that's really unique about Paso wines is that with that fruit kind of thumbprint we get up here, they can really stand up to a little bit of spice. So this should be a great pairing for this one, and don't be afraid to save a little bit for the next pairing for that Texas style brisket that's paired with the Petit Syrah, because with good chunk of Petit Syrah in this Pure Paso blend, it should lend itself well nice. All right, everybody, just wanted to bring us into our third wine here and kind of tie into the Pure Paso red blend as well. I'm here in our original Tower Road Petit Syrah vineyard, in one of the original blocks here in Paso Robles in the Estrella district. This is a warmer AVA in Paso, and the Petit Syrah really loves it. We do have to do a few things to make sure we get a really high quality wine out of this, and our kind of classic thumbprint with our Petit Syrah, which is a really soft style of Petit Syrah with really dense fruit. We don't want to get that clawing astringency that you can get from some, and one of the things we do to make sure we keep this wine soft is a vineyard management thing, and these long green things behind me here that go along the bottom of the vines, you might think these are for birds to keep them out of the berries, but they're actually shade cloths. And what they do is they provide a bit of shade during our hot 100-degree summer days as ripening is happening with these vines. And it allows us to maintain thinner skins, and lower that astringency and that tannin level on the wine, which creates a really soft, really dense wine in the glass. That same soft, dense character is why it blends so well with Cabernet in our Pure Paso proprietary red wine. The Tower Road is one you don't really see out and about. It's one that's really limited to kind of key partners in the market, and you guys should have a real treat in store pairing this with the Texas style brisket. This wine loves anything with smoke, anything with that Maillard reaction that you get from putting some heat on some meat. I wanted to step over here to the next block over to show some of our younger Petit Syrah vines and also some vines that have yet to be pruned. So these vines still have all of last year's growth on them. And what the vineyard team is going to do is come through, they're actually doing it right now, trim these up and make sure we're setting ourselves up for not just this year, but next year for managed growth, managed fruit production, which is going to increase the quality of the wine. So this is sort of the before on the trim, and then the other shot that we just looked at was a nice clean pruned block. I just wanted to take a second here as well just to kind of introduce and talk about the family. The J in J Lohr is Jerry. He's still alive and runs the show. He's in his early 80s, and his 3 kids, the family, are still very much involved with the winery. So that's kind of one of the best parts about working for J Lohr and being a part of this is that it's truly family owned. And the best thing about Jerry is that he's a farmer first. He's from South Dakota, and this growing J Lohr and building it as a winery was him getting back to his South Dakota farming heritage. Behind us actually is our tasting room, which is currently under remodel. Due to everything going on, we decided to utilize this time to give it a remodel and eventually offer a more personalized tasting experience with seated tastings and a little more education for the consumer, not just about J Lohr, but really about the Paso Robles AVA. As much as possible, we want to build the AVA, talk about Paso Robles, talk about what makes it special, and really see all of our brother and sister wineries in the AVA grow. It's a beautiful place, and we're able to make a wide amount of really unique and beautiful world-class wines from this area. We have 11 different sub-AVAs in Paso. J Lohr grows in 7 of them, and it's the 11 AVAs, those American viticultural areas, is sort of a nod to how unique and how many microclimates there are in this AVA. It's a really special place. I love to call Paso Robles home, and hopefully we at J Lohr can invite and have some of the guests from tonight's Wine Vault pairing and dinner up at the winery, or at any winery really in Paso Robles in the near future. But thank you guys so much for taking a minute or a few minutes to learn about J Lohr, to try our wines out, and to hear some of the history and some of the vineyard and winemaking practices that go into the wines. We're really proud of them, and we're really proud of really everybody in Paso Robles that's helping grow this AVA and this amazing part of the state. Thanks so much, and enjoy the dinner. And from all of us at J Lohr, cheers.